this book of Navathe for few chapters, like a sequel. For sequel also you can refer, for uh, transition theory you can refer this book, right? So with this, let me start today's discussion, and today's discussion is focused on the theory called serializability. Right, it's like in the previous lecture we have taken a concept called recoverability, and that theory, recoverability, indicates or basically it represents a nature of the schedule, nature of a transaction, that that particular transaction, particular schedule may be recovered, right? So these properties simply indicate that suppose due to some external reasons a transaction get affected or schedule get affected, then based on this property you can basically identify, or you can estimate, or you can characterize that, okay, this schedule can be recovered, right? And if it is not recovered, you should be going for the rollback. That is how a procedure is, right? So that's what we have clearly discussed in the previous class, that whenever a transaction, whenever a schedule means more than one transactions happening on the similar data items. So whenever these schedules are affected, or maybe, you know, failed or aborted or interrupted because of some reasons, you need to see the possibility of recovery, of possibility of rollback of these transactions, right? So recovery is the first step, which will be done when there are few transactions which can be reinstated, or maybe uh, restated to the valid state, consistent state, by simply adopting the recovery mechanism. But there are some situations, there are some transactions or schedules on which you need to apply this rollback procedure, right? So, in today's lecture, we will be discussing one specific theory, which is called serializability, right? So, serializability is an again a characteristic of a particular schedule or particular transaction, which simply give you a sequence of rollback. It is basically indicating a cycle of, or maybe the different pattern, that how this is how you should be rolling back. Because whenever we are conducting the schedules, whenever there are various users are using or operating on the same data item, and there is some failure happens to any of the transaction in the schedule, you need to roll back, you need to basically revert it, you need to perform recoveries of some values. Then you should be following a sequence. You cannot abruptly roll back each and every transaction, right? So for that you need to see. Yeah, so let me share again. Yeah. Okay, so there is some interruption happened. So let me, I think it is this sharing window is visible to you or not? Can you confirm? I hope it is visible to you. Can anyone confirm that this sharing window is available?
No, sir.
Okay, let me fix it first and we will go for the presentation. There is some technical issue I'm facing right now. So this. So give me at least 1 minute to fix this issue first. Okay, let me stop first. Then I will just reinitiate it. So yeah, window this. Yeah, I hope this is visible now. Okay, there is some network issue I'm facing lately. So let me. Yeah. So I this time it is, I think it is shared. So as you can see, it is visible to you. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's okay. So basically, between these two characteristics or these two property of a schedule, recovery, which we have discussed in the previous class, that based on these things you can identify that a schedule is recoverable or not. Now we are going for the next property, which is called serializability. So this serializability basically indicates that this is how you can ensure or you can confirm that particular schedule is uh, you know uh, basically this is how you can perform the rollback. That's the simple indication is, right? So because we will be getting various transactions, various operations of user within these transactions happening, which will be interleaved. So it is very important, it is critical to know the sequence of rollback, to know the sequence of retraction of the different transactions, right? So this is something very important, and in basically today's lecture we will be understanding that how to derive that sequence, how to derive that cycle, how to derive the sequence on which we can roll back the transactions, right? So this is a simple definition of this property, that okay, serializability is important and it helps to retract or basically revert all the changes which we have done in the system, right? So let's take a few examples to understand this, and basically then we can be having this idea that what is the possible sequence of what is the possible serial way based on which we can basically withdraw or we can basically undo the changes which has been done, right? So typically what we are expecting in the system, that whenever we have more than one transaction in a system, one more than one transaction means we will be having different user operations of these transactions. And naturally the best case is basically possible when we have two transactions in a schedule and these two transactions are separated, like you can see here in the very first schedule. In the very first schedule here, you can see in the schedule A, you can see all the operations in transaction T1 are placed in one place, right? Similarly, T2 is operating. T2 is having operations scheduled once all the operations are completed in T1 transaction. After that, only T2 is starting their operations. So this is something we expect as a best case, because here there is no interleaving between user operation involved. So this is something we expect as a best case, but it is not expected, it is not possible for a system, for a transaction processing system which might have thousands and hundreds of users which are operating on the same data item in any real time window, right? So this is something okay in cases where we have only limited users operating on a particular data item. Like here we have two transactions, and these two transactions are operating on data item X, and basically y data item is not accessed by transaction T2. So there is a possibility of conflict only because of data item X. But just because there is no interleaving or there is no mixing or overlapping of transactions or operations happening in this schedule, I think this is the best case, or any failure on these situation may be easily retracted, easily reverted, because it seems that we are having directly it's obvious, it's common sense based observation. We can claim that transaction T1 is completed, then only T2 is starting. So it is like T1 is followed by transaction T2. So by having this observation, you can clearly claim that whenever there is a failure between these transactions happened, you can simply roll back T2 first, then T1, something like that. So you can have this clear idea. Similarly, for the second transaction, the second schedule, where we have placed two transactions, again T1 and T2, but this time we have this time it is observed that all the operations of T2 has been completed, and after that only we have started all the operations in T1 transaction. So this sequence, this schedule indicates that there is a pattern of like T2 is T2 is followed by T1, something like that. So whenever a failure occurs, you can simply indicate that, okay, let's roll back T2 first, T1 first, then T2, something like that. Right? So rolling back means it is reversing the sequence which has been followed when users are operating. If T1 is following by T2, then reversal of that will be the rollback strategy, rollback sequence. So this is something very easy to understand, which is very easy to perceive, because the operations within transactions are not having any overlap or any interleaving effect with the operations of other transactions which are operating or which might be creating conflicts, right? And the definition of conflicts we have taken in the previous class. Conflicts in a schedule, in a particular schedule, which will be having more than one transactions, conflict will be happening only based on three reasons or based on three observations. First observation says more than one transactions are accessing the same data item at least, and all of these will have at least one write operation, right? So these are the three criterias. Like all the transactions should be, so all the operations should be falling into the different transactions, and these transactions will be sharing a same data item X, and in these operations there must be at least one write operation. Then only we can claim that there is a conflict. And conflicts are something which will be creating problems for recovery, problems for rollback, any other operations to recover or to maintain the concurrency, right? So whenever write is occurring, write operation is occurring, that will be creating conflicts, and conflicts are something which we will be taking care of, right? So here you can see in the schedule B, there are two transactions, but they are separately placed. Similarly, in the schedule A, there the two transactions and operations of these two transactions are kept in a separate space. There is no overlapping. There is no basically interleaving of user operation placed. So these two situations are very, you can say the ideal stages, ideal situations. So here you can simply operate and identify that after this transaction you will be rolling back this transaction, something like that, right? So to understand this, to indicate this, or to represent this sequence of rollback or sequence of transactions happening, there is a concept called precedence graph, right? So precedence graph is basically a graph. So precedence term is something which we are familiar also as a computer science student. So precedence of operator, like we have said, maybe precedence of logics, precedence of operator, something like that. So we have this idea about this precedence term. What is precedence? So here also we are trying to draw a notational representation of that of the strategy of the systematic steps, that how these two transactions are happening and how there may be possibility of conflicts happening, right? So as you can see here in the diagram, you can see there is a simple uh, graph, you can say, is drawn, which is having two nodes, because a certain schedule for which we have drawn the precedence graph is having two transactions, T1 and T2, right? So in a precedence graph you will be drawing the number of nodes equal to the number of transactions in the schedule, right? So if there is a question like you have to draw the precedence graph of a schedule, then you will be simply drawing or identifying the number of nodes in a precedence graph equal to the number of transactions. That's one part. Second, there will be edges. There will be some edges drawn between these nodes. So each node is now indicating a different transaction. So there will be the possibility of edges there, right? So this edge represents, or edge indicates, the presence of conflict between transactions, right? So if you see here, there are two different nodes are here, T1 and T2, and these two nodes represent these two transactions, T1 and T2. And if you can see, there is an edge between T1 and T2, which means there is a conflict. There is a conflict between these two transactions, and this direction indicates, so there is a value placed X. So X indicates is the name of data item on which these two transactions are having conflict. Now you have to indicate, because we are trying to derive a sequence, we are trying to derive a particular cycle. cycle. Based on that, we can decide that okay, to roll back them, this will be the sequence, right? So to identify this cycle of rollback, first you need to identify that what is the sequence of conflict, what is the chronology of this conflict. So between these two transactions, T1 and T2, if you see, there is a data item X which has been accessed. So this is the transaction which you'll be talking about. So yeah, so you can see, I think it is visible to you now. Between these two transactions, T1 and T2, this schedule SA, we are trying to derive. Yeah, so now it is visible. So for this schedule A, you can see there are two transactions, and these two transactions, T1 and T2, are trying to access data item X. And if you can carefully see, we are having this sequence like T2, I mean T2, T1 is followed by T2, T1 is followed by T2. So T1 has access data item X first. After that, T2 is accessing data item X. So this is the direction of conflict. This is the direction of access on the data item X. So this is how this indicate a pattern. This indicate a strategy. This indicate a sequence based on which a particular data item X was accessed between these two transactions, right? So we do not have drawn any edge or any conflict notation for the data item Y, because data item Y is only accessed by transaction T1. It is not accessed by transaction T2, right? So in a precedence graph, we will be drawing nodes. We will be drawing a edge. So edge is naturally coming from the conflicts, and there will be a directional edge. So edge indicates, the direction of edge indicates the sequence of transactions on which they are accessing a data item X, right? So naturally, whenever we will be drawing an edge, so there will be conflicts. It means there will be at least one operation between these two transactions which will be accessing a data item X for write operation, right? Similarly, you can see for this schedule B, you can see here we have got this strategy of this time that T2 will be accessing the data item first, and then T1 will be accessing. So the precedence graph indicates that okay, so there is the edge between T1 and T2, and this edge will be coming from T2 to T1, which indicates simply, so T1 has accessed the data item X after T2 has done something on it. T2 operation of T2 transaction has been operated on it, right? So this is the simple observational base. So you can say the conception is there for drawing the precedence graph. Similarly, if you go for the other transaction, like you can see that the schedule C, which has again two transactions, but you can see here the user operations on these two transactions has been placed in a interleaved manner. Now you can see how to draw the precedence graph of this situation. So you can see in the T1, so T1 is something which has started accessing X in the very first moment. So you can see in the T1 read item X and perform X equals to X minus N. So T1 is something which has access X data value first. After that, T2 has accessed it for reading. That's one instance. So read to read, there will be no conflict, I think, right? That's what we have taken also. But reading X and performing X equals to X minus N, there will be, in future, there will be some data which will be writing on X from T2. Similarly, if you go for the next operation, which is read item X equals to X plus N, and after going to the next moment, there is a write operation by X. So if you see the precedence graph of this schedule SC, you can see here in the bottom, there is an edge between T1 and T2, which is pointing towards from T1 to T2 on X, and there is another edge between T2 and T1, which indicates there is an operation which is saying T2 has access X, after that T1 has access, right? So for this representation, you can see there is a interleave operations in schedule, and because of this interleaving, if you carefully draw the precedence graph, it has a cycle involved. So you can see in the precedence graph of schedule SC, you can see here there is a cyclic notation is there. So like T1 following T2, T2 following T1, something like that. So whenever we have this kind of situation, whenever we have a cycle drawn in the precedence graph of a schedule, we can clearly say that this schedule cannot be roll backed in a sequence. If a precedence graph is having or indicating a cyclic pattern, a closed cycle pattern, you can directly, you can say, uh, observe or conclude that this schedule cannot be roll backed. So this is something is a worst case, right? This is something is a worst case. So whenever the precedence graph of a schedule consists of a cycle, you can clearly conclude this, right? Additionally, if you see the schedule D, which is on the right side of the diagram, in the schedule D, if you can see the transactions are interleaved, that's okay. But now, if you read how they are placed, so based on these operations placed, if you draw the precedence graph of these operations, you can have decided that there is a conflict. Naturally, there is a conflict between T1 and T2, but just because operations are interleaved in one way, like T1 is happening first, then T2 is happening. So precedence graph will be like T1 and T2. So T1 from T1 to T2. That is something, it is coming from the schedule also. So in case of schedule D, we do not have any cyclic sequence or cyclic order. So that is one thing you can claim that whenever in case of schedule D, we don't have any cyclic closure loop. So this schedule D is also recoverable. It is also rollbackable. You can perform a rollback for these schedule. So after these four different schedule, you can see A, B, C, D. So we have four different schedules, and for these four different schedules, we have drawn the precedence graph also, right? So you can see here, after drawing the precedence graph, you can observe one thing very interesting, that schedule A and schedule D. So you can see the precedence graph of schedule A and schedule D are having something common. So the precedence graph of schedule A and schedule D is same, you can say directly. So whenever we see two schedules are having same kind of similar precedence graph, then you can conclude that these two transactions are having similar conflicts also. So you can say these two transactions or these two schedules are called or can be called uh, conflict equivalence. Both are having same conflicts, something like that, right? And you can claim that schedule A and schedule D, because they are having same conflicts, you can claim that these two schedules SA and SD are conflict equivalence, and they can be called conflict equivalent serializable, right? So these can be serialized, these can be rolled back easily, so they can be called as a conflict equivalent serializable, right? So this is how you can derive, you can draw a precedence graph, and this is how you can decide the sequence. Now for schedule D, the rollback pattern will be like, you will be rollbacking T2 first, you will be reverting T2 first, then T1. So this rollback sequence or rollback pattern will be the opposite, or maybe reverse, or maybe contradictory sequence of a sequence on which these schedules has been executed or has been conducted. But in case of C, schedule C, you can see, because there is a cyclic pattern involved. So in this case, you cannot decide from where or from which sequence we should be starting, just because it is having a cyclic pattern involved between transactions. There is cyclic nature of conflicts involved in this case, we cannot decide which transactions should be rolled back first. So that's the reason, whenever we found something like a cyclic pattern among the transactions in a precedence graph, then we can claim that this transaction or this schedule cannot be roll backed. right? It is not a serializable. So you can say that in other terms or in words, you can say this schedule is not a serializable schedule. It cannot be serialized. It cannot be rolled back in future also, right? So this is something a very common sense based observation and common sense based solution. And in particular book by Navathe, there is a naturally algorithm written that okay, based on these things, you will be drawing a graph. Based on these things, you will be identifying the different conflicts and drawing an edge between transaction, placing the data items. So there are steps involved, but I consider this serializability is a very common sense based property, and for a given schedule you can draw a conflict equivalent graph or precedence graph, right? So let me open up a new schedule and show you how to draw a graph whenever we have complex or whenever we have more than one transaction involved into. So now you can see here we have got a new schedule which is having three transactions scheduled, three transactions and their respective operations. So you can clearly see we have got T1, T2, T3, T transactions, and for T1 we have got access on X item and Y data item. T2 is trying to access all three Z, Y, and X, all three different data items, and T3 transaction is trying to read data item Y and Z and then performing write on them. So all the operations on these three transactions are interleaved, overlap. So based on these patterns of accessing, you can see there is a precedence graph on the screen available to you, and you can now correlate that if you see between T1 and T2, between top transaction T1 and T2, there is a transaction from T1 to T2 on the data item X. So you can see in the schedule, there is an access of data item X by T1, and T2 is operating on the data item X once it is accessed by T1. So data item X is accessed by T1 first, then by T2. Similarly, if there is an edge between T2 from T2 to T1, so you can see that in the transaction T2 is trying to read item X and write item Y. T2 is trying to modify it. After doing this, if you see there is a transition operation by transition T1 on the bottom, there is a read item Y and write item Y. So that's because of this we have got this T2 from T2 to T1 on data item Y. So there is a small loop available. So this is something which are trying to avoid. So there is a cyclic nature involved between T1 and T2. Yeah, so there are additional edges involved. So because we have got third transaction involved, so you can see between T3 and T1. So from T3 to T1, there is an edge because of data item Y. So you can read the transaction also. T3 is basically has updated read access data item Y and then updated it. And after these occurrences of uh, data item on X by T3, we have got some request on data item Y by transition T1. So because of this edge is there in the precedence graph, which shows there is a T from T3 to T1 on data item Y. Similarly, if you go to the edge between T2 from T2 to T3, so from T2 to T3, there are two data items for which this there is a overlap, for there is a conflict, right? So this is how you can draw the precedence graph whenever we have more than one transaction, whenever we have conflict on more than one data values, right? So you can see in this case, we have got two cyclic sequences. One is between T1 to T2. So it is like loop between T1, T2. There is another loop which is like starting from T2 to T3, T3 to T1, and then T1 to T2, right? Similarly, so we have got two cyclic sequence here. So I mean, even having one cyclic sequence in a transaction or in a precedence graph is sufficient enough to claim that these schedule cannot be serialized. This schedule cannot be rolled back in the future also, because of any failure. So I mean, having one is sufficient. If you are having more than one schedule, more than one cyclic occurrences in a precedence graph, then you can strongly claim that this schedule cannot be serialized. This schedule cannot be rolled back in future whenever there is an error happening, right? Similarly, let's go to the last transaction, and this is probably the last point which we are trying to make. So let's see this this schedule, which is having these three transactions are there: T1, T2, and T3, and that's why in the precedence graph we have drawn these three nodes. And for these three data items X, Y, and Z, if you see, there is a no there is I mean there is an edge involved between T1 and T2, but it is directly going from T1 transition to T2, and this sequence of operation is happening on two data items. So that's why there is an edge between T1 from T1 to T2 on XY. And if you see, there is an edge between T3 from T3 transactions to transaction T2 on data item Y. Similarly, if you see carefully, the last edge between T3 to T1, which is it is going from T3 node to T2 node on data item YZ. So you can see, or you can observe in the precedence graph and claim that there is no cyclic sequence involved, right? There is no cyclic sequence involved. That is one thing. Second thing, so that's okay. So it means this schedule can be serialized. But it is very important to understand that whenever we draw the precedence graph, identifying precedence graph is one part. That whenever we found there is a cyclic pattern involved, you can directly discard the schedule and directly claim that this schedule is not serializable. It cannot be serialized. It means there will be no possibility of rollback of this transaction due to the failure. That's one part. Second part is whenever we are trying to derive a precedence graph of a schedule, you need to see what will be the sequence of execution, right? Getting a cyclic arrangement is one aspect. If cyclic sequence or cyclic pattern is not existing, the second work of a manager, second work of a transaction processing system is to derive the possible sequence of execution, right? Like in the previous cases, just we have seen whenever we have two transactions involved, if there is no cycle involved, you can easily identify a serial or sequence of execution of transaction, and your rollback plan will be opposite of that, right? So here you can see we have got this schedule, and we have got three transactions, and we have observed that in precedence graph we do not have any, there is no basically loop visible or available. So you can directly claim that this is something is serialized or serializable schedule. You can perform a serial execution of the different transactions. But it is very important that okay, can you tell me the possible serial, can you tell me the possible sequence of execution of the transaction? Because as far as precedence graph concerned, there is no specific sequence available. You cannot have any specific schedule. So either you can go for like let's perform T3, T1, and then T2. That's one way, right? So this is something one possible solution. But because there is an edge between T3 to T2, so if you start with T3 and go to T2, we don't have any edge between T2 to T1, which is start from T1 and going to T1, T2 to T1, something like that. So we have only one possible sequence, and that is starting from T3. So let's start T3 and perform all the changes. That's one thing. Let's start T3 and perform all the changes, perform all the operations of T3, then go to T1, perform all the operation of T1, then go to T1, T2, then perform all the sequences, all the operations. That could be the one solution, right? So this is something is challenging also. So serializability, the property of serializability also indicates that this is how you should be executing these transactions, right? Because once we decided that okay, this is how these transactions will be executed, then only we can claim that okay, the opposite of that will be the plan for rollback, right? So with this, I'm closing this today's lecture because has been now, I mean, touched upon that we have got two property, and basically to in case of failure of in transaction, we have two properties to cover or to retract or to basically reinstate the system's state, right? So we have now, we can claim that we have understood this different nature of a transaction, through which we can identify that a failed transaction, a failed schedule can be reinstated, or can be rolled back to its valid state, right? So that is something which is very important, because uh, any processing system or any database system is mainly concerns about the possibility of failure, right? Because in ideal cases, or best performance of the system might be not a concern big thing of for the system, right? Because to perform some designated duty is the something expected performance. But whenever these exceptions are happening, it is very important to understand that how system is dealing with these exceptions, right? It is very important to see that we have two strategy to deal with the possible failure of transactions. So next, in the next lecture, which will be the last lecture probably, we'll be discussing the last concept of the database, which is how to implement the theory of concurrency, right? So whenever, now we have discussed these possibility of failures of transaction, and how this is how system will be taking care of it. So if failure is not happening in the system, how system is trying to achieve this concurrency, how system is maintaining the concurrency, right? Like we have assumed that in a particular data item X, there will be hundreds of transactions who will be operating on the data item X. But in a system point of view, naturally system is trying to put a constraint, or basically maintain a queue, because you cannot have access of all these 100 transactions on a same moment, right? You need to maintain a queue, something like that. Yes, we are maintaining these queue to make impression that system is available for all these users, and we will be maintaining a pattern, that we will be maintaining a check that this is how you should be assessing, this is how the different data states is available, right? And if failure occurs on the database system, if any transaction fails, then we will be coming to these two characteristics. One characteristic is recoverability, and second characteristic is serializability, right? So system is having two, you can say two modules. One is for concurrency control, and second is called recovery control, right? So in a DBMS system, we have got these two different modules. So first module is called concurrency control, and is this concurrency control module or system will be having algorithms, or different again system components, scheduler you can say, which will we have some logics built into it, based on which it will be taking care of all the transactions coming. And if any failure occurs, if any external reasons happen because of which transaction gets failed, uh, then we will be calling to this second protocol, which is called recovery control, right? Recovery control. So we have two systems or two subsystem in a database, or in not database, in DBMS system. So each and every DBMS, maybe Oracle or maybe any company, will have these components, will have these system utilities, right? So these are again softwares actually. So that's why we have said DBMS is a collection of softwares, collection of subsystems. So recovery control and concurrency control, these are the two subsystems which maintains this kind of client server approach, that whenever concurrency is there, whenever we fail it occurs, this recovery system will immediately take a call that how to recover it, how to perform rollback, right? So this is something which is happening in the real basis also for each and every transaction, and it is equally important, right? So in tomorrow lecture, on the next lectures, we will be discussing that what are the different strategies for concurrency control, right? So in a DBMS system, we have this concurrency control module, and within that there is some algorithm built to it, like how to accept all the transaction, how to maintain a queue, how to release certain transaction from a queue, so that we can maintain a particular concurrency mechanism, or concurrency control mechanism, right? So we will be uncovering those three strategies in the next lecture, and with that we will be sufficiently closing our database course syllabus with the positive remarks, right? So if you have any query right now, you can share these queries with me. You can share. Otherwise, we can